Good afternoon, everyone, or evening, or morning, depending on where you're viewing this from. I'm Kumar Dattatreyan from Agile Meridian. We're a little late. Sorry about that. Forgot to do one small little thing, and we took care of that late. But anyway, it's all about today's episode is all about embracing disruption, and so that's what we're doing. Embracing.
Yeah, we're embracing it right now. We did not plan this.
We did not plan this. Yeah, exactly. So we're embracing it.
Not
And
stage
with
disruption.
today is my colleague and good friend Michael Jebber, and really what we've been doing over the last few years since the pandemic, as a society, as a entire world, really is we had no choice but to embrace this disruption from COVID, right? And so we've been applying it ourselves with our clients to help them embrace disruption and become more resilient and adaptable in the face of change. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, sort of our experiences helping our clients develop this capability to embrace disruption and thrive in the face of changes. And so, Mike, I'm wondering if we could talk about some of the clients that we've served over the past 4, 5, 6 years. So this started, before the pandemic, developing this capability, and we've refined it since then. What would you say fuels this shift from avoiding disruption to viewing it as an opportunity for innovation?
I think it's interesting. To your point, I think a big part of this is that this has been going on before COVID. COVID was absolutely a landmark event that kind of brought a lot more people into that space. Per se, if you want to call it that. But we were working with folks back 2013, 14, 15. We weren't partners then, but all of us as individuals were working with folks doing similar things like this with folks that had enough awareness and had structured themselves to be able to see and experience what a win feels like when they're ready for opportunities that are brought to them mainly through the changes of their industry. At that time, technology was the biggest driver of change. I would say the biggest consistent driver. It was the hype cycles like focus, kind of similar to the way AI is right now, right? But the idea has been around for a while. And there were folks that were going after this that had that as part of their core values and it was part of their intent to make that a cultural element as to the way they operated, because they saw so much value and they'd made a lot of plateau leaps to new places and into new market spaces, maybe as product launches or services, but a lot of them into new spaces they had thought about getting into, but never really had they never thought they had the capacity, the capability, or those opportunities. But they said there's got to be a way to do this. And we were working with folks back then around those types of things. Come COVID, as you said, change was thrust into our embrace in a way that we couldn't avoid it. And now you look at this and people get it. The ahas are there. We didn't have to, back then we had to generate those ahas to say, this is something that's valuable. I know, Kumar, you and I've talked about this before. We used to have conversations around saying building adaptable capabilities is of something that you need to put alongside of all of your good business practices and your experience. And people didn't understand what that meant. It was you had to do a lot of explaining. You had to do a lot of kind of bringing them forward into this thinking. And then once they connected it with, so I can go out and get things and be ahead of my marketplace in terms of innovation and change. Yes, that's exactly it, right? So when we think about today, what folks are doing is it's about building that capability into a sustainable way so that it can become culture. Because the recognition from the leaders that we're working with today, certainly all of the ones that are driving innovation and driving a lot of other things like social responsibility and other different things they want in their marketplace, they know that they have to be able to take big leaps. One of the CEOs I used to work with called it the moonshot. They've got to take those moonshot events when they happen, there's opportunities. What they found is there's opportunities in their marketplaces, typically in their sectors, where there's an opening to take a moonshot. And if you don't have a structure in your organization that is allowing strategy and execution to work seamlessly so that you as a senior leader can look forward and look for those opportunities, that takes capacity, that takes time, and it's a learned skill, just like a lot of skills that you have. It takes time to be good at it, and it takes time to do it. You're gonna miss those opportunities. So that's really where I think a lot of this is driving from. And we've got folks today that we're working with, that I've got several in the manufacturing space where they're trying to grow, and the trades industries that served and serviced their plants, their manufacturers, and their entire industry are all retiring, and there weren't new talent coming up. So they're trying to innovate and find ways to recreate that funnel of talent so that they can grow. Because there are opportunities that are still exist today because of supply chain issues around the world, and because of a lot of global geopolitical issues around the world, where people want to do more local stuff. And a lot of the folks in the region I'm in are finding new opportunities to where they may not have been the largest player in their space, but now their customers are looking for other options. And this is a really a good opportunity for them to jump in. And they're having success at doing both of those things, building those talent pools and moving into being able to give themselves the capacity to move into those spaces.
That's great. So you mentioned a lot of things there. And you know, referencing the article you wrote recently, a blog post you wrote recently, a lot of the things you just said sort of covers many of the points you made in the article, which was about the need for leaders to cultivate an experimental mindset. And all of these things are made possible with the employees, the people that are doing the work, right? Are given the freedom to fail, to experiment and fail and learn from failure and things like that. You also mentioned training and adaptable workforces, right? And you mentioned that your clients or our clients, I should say, are employing techniques to not only make their workforce more adaptable by investing in training programs and things like that, but also investing in the community. One of the other things you mentioned in the article, which we'll link to this this video, is the idea that leaders develop these leadership sensors, if you will, sort of like little antenna, right? Capable of detecting disruption early before they're caught in the middle of it. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really important, I'll call it a soft skill for lack of a better phrase that's coming to mind right now, but it's a combination of capacity, technique, and just really getting good at it. I use, you've heard me use the golf reference a lot. You don't go out and watch the Masters for 4 days, pick up a golf club and go out and hit a golf ball 350 yards straight as an arrow. You have to hit a lot of balls. It's the same thing with these types of capabilities that you need to build as a leader. And what's interesting is it's not just the senior leaders. It's really important for the senior leaders from the aspect of the organizational direction. Very critical, right? But when you think about it, when your employee group, when your pool of talent is becoming more empowered and your environment supports that, and they're learning what leadership is at any level in the organization, they can find micro improvements out there to go out and find these opportunities too. So really, leadership at every level has the opportunity to build this sensory skill. It's typically they're honing it in and focusing in on where their responsibilities are and where their expertise lies, because that's where they're going to see those opportunities faster. But as a group, as a whole, if they're all building these sensors and really building into their environment the availability for them to go out and use those sensors to find new opportunities and to find situations that can be leveraged, that's when you really see those opportunities to take those moonshots.
Can you give an example, a tangible example that you can point to with one of our clients where you've seen this occur? Where middle management or maybe the workers, the people, the doers, if you will, are making what would be considered maybe in a prior iteration of the company a leadership decision?
Yeah, there's kind of two things there. So I'll give you two examples. One of them is in the middle leadership level, where again there was an organization that was struggling to get talent, trying to figure out how to find that talent. And because of the structure that they had and the ability and the capacity that they opened up, they were able to go out and build some of these, I would call it almost like apprenticeship programs,
Hmm.
or almost tradespersons programs to build people up. And then on top of that, they also saw that by doing so, they had an opportunity to reach out into their community and actually start reaching out to at-risk kids in high school and just out of high school, in their later teens and early 20s. And they're considering even going a little younger for at-risk to bring in those folks as well. Once they had this kind of program running, they had something to show these at-risk kids and young adults, to show them another way, to show them a path. So they're impacting their community directly through this, but it's also driving the ability to have more capacity. So you take that at the middle layer. Senior leadership now looks at that and goes, we forecast now we're going to have this kind of capacity available to us. Where should we best apply it? And because they're not having to manage all of these tactical things, strategy and execution are tied together in a very, very visible way, but everybody's got their role and responsibility. They're not weighted down with that in their capacity. They're actually are finding some new market spaces, one of which they always wanted to get into, another one that similar to the at-risk teens, they bumped into while going after that. By going after that new marketplace, they bumped into another opportunity that they were never really even planning or didn't even think that would be something that would be an option for them.
That's really amazing. So middle management sort of maybe on their own, or they
reached out to leadership and they said, we want to do this. Right.
That's great. And so they're taking care of these more tactical, I would call them maybe more tactical decisions, because there's a little strategy involved there, right? Maybe they didn't think of it initially, but they were strategic in thinking, hey, we should reach out to the community and help these people. And of course, the benefit is that they're going to bring more capacity for the organization to use and in the future, right? So it's like a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and the fact that leadership was opened up both in terms of time and in responsibility to now do more organizational, long-term initiative type, strategic type things with product lines and different offerings. It all starts to self-serve. It starts self-serving each other, right? You've got new items coming in to fulfill the capacity, so you don't have empty benches or folks that are idle.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that it segues perfectly into this notion of strategy and execution, right? So you mentioned it already, and one of the things that we do with our clients, with which you've been a sort of a strong proponent of this, is establishing cadence structures for the different types of meetings, if you will, or different types of planning sessions that are focused more on strategy or focused more on execution. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think you and I both have a chuckle around this, because I've heard you say it as well. And we say that we're very situational and contextual when we work with leaders and our clients, both in coaching, training, activities, all sorts of different things. Because really, life is situational, contextual, right? But there are a few things. If you were going to call us dogmatic about anything, I would say it's really around cadence and around commitment, right? In terms of being able to commit to those cadences and having a very visible and well-defined cadence and understanding of what intra-cadence elements go into each part of any cadence you build, not just for meetings, but for different types of interactions, different types of reviews. And what it ends up doing, interestingly enough, is usually when folks start doing this, they find it very hard to be able to find time to do this, right?
Hmm.
However, once we start giving them, once they start realizing the capacity gains that they're getting back by doing some of the things that we work with them on, all of a sudden the ability to drive cadence becomes very easy. And once that happens, the entire, we call it calendar bingo. You don't have to play calendar bingo anymore, right? You're not going through and say, well, I can meet here. How about you? Blah, blah. All that goes away. And your weeks get very systematic, not robotic, and they're definitely flexible. But everybody has a clear understanding of what happens when, how long it happens, what happens inside of those things. The expectations are very clear and visible. And everyone in those organizations that where it's working have committed to helping to drive and sustain that capability, because it is a capability to maintain a cadence. Honestly,
Yeah.
how many companies have you worked for that we've talked to and seen that where they can't even keep a pattern going? It's the, oh, this is the latest flavor of the day thing that you get when you walk in, because they've seen different patterns try to be instituted, and then they fail, not because the pattern necessarily is bad, but because there isn't a commitment from leadership and from the participants to in earnest participate genuinely in that cadence and with those techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. And this pattern is definitely a fractal pattern. It applies at every layer of the organization. But
Mhm.
that means that it also takes a lot of discipline to implement a pattern like this, where there are
Yes.
cadenced meetings that synchronize the activities, both from a strategic and a tactical perspective. And so it does require a lot of discipline, and does require a lot of, sort of thought, and intentional practice to make it
Mhm.
work. But what we see and with our clients, utilizing our disruptor method, is that these are the things that happen, and it gives these folks so much time back, where they can start to pursue the types of things that make a real difference, not only inside of the company, but also externally in the ecosystem that they operate in, which is a tremendous benefit that I think we don't talk about enough. The impact that these companies are making in their environment.
Yeah, our
Um,
engagements start right off the bat with that. And a little tip for those who are watching: if you're trying to establish something like this in your organization, and you've had a challenge in doing so, one of the things you need to make, actually the thing you need to think of first and foremost, is co-creating this, co-constructing this with the participants that are going to be in it. Don't come up and design something and hand it to them. We co-create so much of what we do with our clients, and that's what helps to keep the situational and contextual elements in play while constructing these things. Because let's face it, you and I don't know the industries that we go into like the people that work in those industries.
yeah.
We're bringing other value than that. So make sure, if you're working on this yourself, make sure it's co-created with them, and have them alongside of you for the journey on making that happen.
That sounds like a really good place to start and maybe end this talk with this question. So for people looking to build adaptability into their organization, because really that's what we're talking about,
Right. Exactly.
organizations that are more adaptable, right? It seems like that's the first step of what you just mentioned, co-creation. What are some other important first steps to start out with?
Well, I think we'll call it air cover when we go in with folks. Senior leaders play a critical role in making sure that there is enough air cover to get change implemented, because change is adopted by different people in every organization at different rates. We use a lot of techniques, and there's a lot of things to help people and describe to them why that is. Another key element is making sure we talk about with our clients around emptying your glass. It's very, very critical to understand where everyone is coming from, where they've been, what they've experienced, and where they're coming from. For anyone who's helping an organization to institute change at any level, let alone organizational change that they're going to adopt and make culture, especially for initiatives or tactical or strategic reasons, let alone tactical. So understanding and letting folks kind of breathe a little bit, get them in there, get them to understand what's going on, make sure they're involved, and build a cadence, use the techniques that they're going to use in the future to help them install and build this new environment. There's no greater way to get some of these things going than to show people how to use them by building the environment with them. And what they do is they learn to wield these techniques and these concepts, these methodologies and mindsets in a way to help them get into this new pattern of activity and give them capacity and give them the ability to think and to be able to create and to be able to ideate and collaborate with each other in a way that most of them have never had the opportunity to do, which is really, really critical towards making it their own and making it sustainable. So, I think those are a few things. There's obviously a lot others. We don't have time for all of them, but I would say those are very, very key and critical things early on to make sure that you're doing when you're helping an organization with change elements like that.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Maybe that's something we can talk about, like deep dive into one of these techniques to start out with, and talk about how we do that and how you might implement some of these techniques on your own.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're going to end our session today. Thanks, Mike, for coming on. And this is a important topic to talk about. We're surrounded by change and disruption all the time. And I think these techniques and frameworks, can be a huge catalyst to help an organization become more resilient in the face of disruption and change.
Absolutely, especially if you're an internal champion that has struggled in the past or struggling right now to try to get some of these things going in your organization. You're one of the passionate innovators or drivers in your organization. Feel free to reach out. We're always available for free advice on these things. We've got a wealth of information out there. But be patient and think about some of those key things early on when you're trying to help others.
We'll include a link to the video on emptying your glass as well. We did a video several months ago on that, and that's a really sort of a deep dive into a technique that we use. We call it emptying your glass, and it's really just sort of getting everything out, that needs to be brought up in front of when you're co-creating something, when you're sort of trying to create a synergy amongst a group of people that may have or may never have worked together. But anyway, we're getting long.
Oh yeah, include that link too on change, helping others with change.
That's a good one too. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next week for our next episode of the Agile Shorts. See you all later.
Thank you, everyone.